the show itself and the support I'm giving to the Advanced New Zealand NZPP party during this election season, please do make a donation at the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. Backup channel is up, and here we go. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show. I am not a credible journalist. I'm an incredible journalist. And my very special guest joining me today from the hottest, sweatiest place on earth is Stefan Versteppen, a martial arts master who just needs to wipe that sweat from his brow. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a very, very strong exertion today on the show. So, Stefan, welcome to the program, your website, chinastrategies.com. Now, after you've just had a few minutes to familiarise yourself with the Advanced New Zealand Public Party, could you just give us your honest first impressions, and then we'll get on into the interview?
Well, okay, so honest, I like it. The policies look very solid. I mean, this is what we all need, not just New Zealand. Canada needs something like this. America has something like this. They call it the Constitution. Unfortunately, nobody ever follows that anymore. But, we are all part of the Commonwealth, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and we all seem to be following the same kind of programming. They took everybody's guns there. They're trying to take our guns here with another staged, phony massacre that nobody believes really happened and is so full of holes, and nobody will investigate. It's the worst mass murder in Canadian history, and people are saying, well, can we get an investigation? And the police are going, well, no, we don't need to investigate it. So that tells you everything you need to know. It's a false flag. So we're all under the same program. We're all under the same schedule of the Agenda 21. I came out with a video. Well, it's not really a video. It's just me talking about what life would be like under Agenda 21, and it's not going to be pretty. We have to stop this thing. These people are not fooling around. This Agenda 21 is, it's mass extermination of 80% of the population in the planet. Under the guise, of doing something good. So we got to stop it, and whatever you can do, forming this party. The founding principles are sound from what I've seen. And but what's our chances of success? This is the big question, right?
Now, as a martial arts master, think about this. When you go into a fight, what kind of confidence level do you have? Is fear in your mind if you're going up against somebody, and does that affect the outcome of the engagement?
Absolutely. But it depends on what the fight is and how good of a martial artist you are. You see, if I go into a fight, I'm pretty confident, but I've been practicing it for 40 years. You tend to get good at stuff when you practice it for 40 years, and so I'm not really that afraid of going into that fight myself. But guys, this is the political arena. This is like Gladiator, right? The movie Gladiator. This is what you're going into with this stuff. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be nasty. But no, you can't have fear. You see, fear interferes with your ability to think and adapt and to synthesize, to move freely. So you can't have fear. Every martial artist will tell you that. Every warrior will tell you that. You can't have fear when you go into it. So go into this fight, Vinny, kick some butt, and don't be afraid. But it's going to be a tough battle.
That's precisely what I thought this morning. In point of fact, I did in fact roll past a sign for a rival political party, Vision New Zealand, and the sign had been quite nastily defaced. And full disclosure here, I actually laughed when I saw it. But then, after I stopped my car and went over to it to take a picture, a realization dawned on me, and I'll just show you the picture here, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Vision New Zealand's party sign here that had been defaced. This is just around the Green Bay area here in Auckland. And I said, this election is going to get ugly. Full disclosure, I laughed when I saw this and pulled over to take a picture, but then the realization dawned on me. We should respect others and never deface their property.
No, I agree with that. I mean, it's just tit for tat defacing the campaign signs. It's so petty, you know. It's just really, it's schoolyard bullying. I think it's beneath the dignity of a. I mean, you're running a party, so and then you have these people running out there and taking down signs. Look, let's get one thing straight. These signs don't mean anything, anyways. The people that put them up, maybe they're going to vote, maybe they're not. I really don't place a lot of faith in the signs itself. So, yeah, no, that's just the beginning of the dirty tricks you're going to end up facing.
And this is the reason why I chose to go through digital forms of activism, because who's going to deface my video? You know, that kind of thing. They physically can't do that. But if I have billboards and things of that nature all around the place, there are any number of dangerous, mentally unhinged, disrespectful people that will, given the opportunity, destroy what somebody else has paid a bit of money for, has worked really hard on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those signs are expensive to print off them. But no, your digital. That would be the way to go. You know, I spend a lot of time. I don't talk about it too much, but I spend a lot of time as a prostitute because when you're a writer and you have to prostitute yourself out, then what you become is a publicist. So I worked for many years as a publicist, and so I get the publicity. I get all the little tricks that they use for marketing and promotions and things like that. Personally, I always felt like I was being a prostitute working that as a publicist, but that's something you're going to need in this campaign. You're going to need a good publicist. You need somebody that can write copy. And it's really important to be able to write copy that, you know, really attracts. It's almost like everything you say has to be a meme, right? It's got to be
kind of like Schwarzenegger's one-liners. You know, if everything was a Schwarzenegger one-liner, that's how it works. Yeah.
That's how it works. Yeah, you're playing to the lowest common denominator, and the lowest common denominator is simple, line phrases that are catchy, that has some transliteration, perhaps. That's the way to work this. Because that's what they do. Look at the campaigns here. Hope and change. What does that even mean? Hope and change. They all say that. They all say change. Every political party here in Canada, United States. Oh, change, change, change. What does that even mean? Nobody knows what it means. It means nothing. That's why, and yet that's what they go with. These simple one-line phrases, and then repetition is the other key. You got to repeat it over and over and over again, like diversity is our strength. Diversity is our strength. It's repeated on TV, commercials, interviews, movies, and television shows over and over and over again. So repetition and keep it simple. That's the way to motivate the masses, because the masses are typically morons. We've had 100 years of our educational system being dumbed down. We don't have a lot of smart people walking around. Like I said in my last video, we probably have never had so many morons living on the planet at one time as we do now.
Well, as the old saying goes, wherever there are morons, there will be oxymorons. Now, the question is, do you go aggressive or do you go togetherness? All right? Like, for example, do you go bring it on, or do you go you are not alone?
Yeah, I would go for the you are not alone more than to bring it on. It's tough to say, you see, because if nobody knows you, and I'm guessing your party, nobody knows the party, then Bring It On is like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I would, me personally, I would think, who are you? Bring on what? You know. So I wouldn't go that way. We're not at that point yet. Bring It On is when you're lined up on the battlefield, and you've just loaded up your AR-15 with an extra magazine. Then it's Bring It On. So no, I would suggest that you go more for a community thing. You got to hit them with what everybody wants. What everybody wants now, to be honest with you, the real people of your country and my country, is to get back to the family values that we once had. You know, people don't want their 6-year-old to transition into a boy. You know, they don't want fisting taught in schools. They're tired of being taxed at an 80% tax rate, which is what we are. We're being taxed at 80%. I have a video up called Why We Are Poor, which clearly and very simply shows the math behind it. I mean, we're taxed to death. That's why nothing can get done. That's why the economy is suffering. You can't go. You know.
And you find that interesting, that the old saying, death and taxes are the only two things certain in life, but nobody made the connection that it's the taxes that are killing you?
Yeah, no, the taxes are killing us. It's ridiculous because it's a long story about how they tax us, but no, we're being taxed to death, and we got to get the government off our backs. This is the whole problem. The government is so huge, and it takes so much, and it causes so much damage to our society. So I know myself, but I think that the people like me, the old-time Canadians, the people that can still remember when the government wasn't up your butt 24/7, that's what we want to get back to. I don't want the government in my business all the time. I don't want them to take all my money. So that would be my message, trying to get back like a revisionist kind of a movement. I mean, wasn't, what's his name there? Ronald Reagan, wasn't that his appeal, right?
Apparently. And it just reminds me of a sign I passed in Kaitaia in the far north, where the party leader Billy TK is from. And I went into the Kaitaia, and the sign says, "Where the journey begins, Kaitaia." And I thought to myself, you know, what a meaningless placation, right? And then we rolled past somebody's just random house, and they've got a sign out the front of their house that says, "You are loved." And I was like, that would be such a much better slogan than where the journey begins. Because that is what people need to hear right now, is that you are loved, you do matter.
Yeah, now if you can tie the I am loved part in with the party and what the party is trying to do for New Zealand. Something like, you love your family, you love your country, and so do we, you know, something like that.
Well, it's interesting, Stefan, because just this morning I was given a call by Billy's assistant saying that I need to be brought on to actually do some of these public relations things, because I'm kind of like central in terms of the party's presence right here, at least on the social media side of things. And so I think maybe tomorrow will be the first meeting we have, and it's fortunate as well because of the publicism. And that's just totally coincidental that we had a cancellation from Dane Wigginton from geoengineeringwatch.org was supposed to be on today, and yet the conversation we're about to have is a little bit more appropriate, especially because of the timing. Now that happens a lot for me. Things will cancel or happen or something like that at exactly the point that they need to, especially since I started growing my hair a little longer. I'm not sure if you know so much of the science around having longer hair and the enhancement of instincts and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
Could you really explain that a little bit to the audience? Because sometimes people will go, "Oh, Vinny, this long-haired person," and it's they perhaps don't know much more about it.
Well, there's a long tradition of having long hair, and that it improves the ability to sense, to be sensitive. The Native American Indians kept their hair long. They thought or they said that it allowed them to be more in tune with the wilderness. The samurai kept their hair long. They thought that was better. That allowed them more intuitive reactions in combat. Of course, we have the story of Samson and Delilah that reflects an age-old tradition of long hair being associated with strength. So there's, do you want me to go into the science about it?
If you could, yeah.
Well, the science is basically, it works something like this. We live in an electric universe. I'm sure you're familiar with Dave Talbot and his work, The Electric Universe. I really believe in that. I think that was the best explanation I've ever had, not only for how the universe works, but for how a lot of things in life works. Because here in the study of martial arts, we often talk about chi, which is this mysterious energy, and the Japanese call it ki. And there's qigong, which is the ability to manipulate this mysterious energy. So we have that theory going around. It's all through the martial arts. It's also through the Hindu, all the philosophy about the chakras and things. And also we have the idea that we can be in touch with the universe. Right? A lot of the spiritual paths say, get in touch with the universe. Now that all sounds really fine and dandy. There's, you think, well, okay, but give me a mechanism for how that all works. This is what I've been asking myself for 20 years. But when you take into account the electric universe, now I understand how it all works. We are all connected through an electromagnetic field. We live in it, which is, again, one of the reasons we have to be so careful about this 5G and this Agenda 21, because we live in an ocean of atmosphere, right? But we also live in an ocean of vibrations and harmonies. And these are electromagnetic pulses, and they connect us instantaneously with other things. So when you talk about this internal energy, chi, and being able to direct it, what you're talking about is directing this plasma energy. And when you talk about getting in touch with the rest of the universe, actually the way that would work then is between all the planets and the stars and the suns and the asteroids and the comets, it is not empty space out there. It's not a complete vacuum. It is a plasma field, and it is full of electromagnetic frequencies. And theoretically, we could be in touch. We could be directly influenced by the furthest stars in the universe. There's no need for the speed of light to travel because the communication would be instantaneous. So the theory then of having long hair is that the long hair acts like an antenna. And that antenna is better able to receive and broadcast the same electromagnetic plasma energy that we talk about with chi and that we talk about when getting in touch with the universe. So that's the theory of the long hair.
Well, and I think... sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll just cite the World War II example, actually, because the U.S. military recruited, what were they? I believe they were members of the Navajo tribe who were proficient trackers, and they got them into basic training, and they shaved all their hair off, as is the case, and then they found that they couldn't track anything. And they were like, okay, that's interesting. So why don't we get a bunch of new recruits in from the tribe and not cut their hair and run a few tests? One of the tests was you had to be sleeping next to a fire and somebody had to creep up on you and get a fake knife around your throat. And your job as the person sleeping by the fire was to either A, detect when they were coming and get away safely, or B, detect when they were coming and pretend to be asleep so that when they come upon you, you can react really quickly, surprise them, and get the fake knife around their throat. Now, the recruits who had their hair shaved failed the test every single time, and the recruits who had long hair passed the test every single time. And this comes down to what has been known as the fractal antenna. Now, your DNA is coiled like an antenna, and the longer your hair is, the longer your antenna is, and the larger antenna are, the better they are at sending and receiving signals. And I believe there was a one of my favorite examples of this is to ask people the question, do you know who invented the telescope? No, because it was invented by 9 different guys who had never met on opposite sides of the world on the same night. There is an energy field out there, ladies and gentlemen. It is the source of inspiration, and if you are connected to the wireless with the right antenna cluster, you can receive it.
Yeah, well, that's what Tesla said too. I believe that 100%, and that's the same story about the 100th monkey. I'm sure you're familiar with that, and I've seen that myself. When I was younger, still to this day, I'm a bit of an amateur inventor. I come up with ideas. Anytime I come up with an idea, the thing is, I know probably half a dozen people have also come up with the idea, because it's all kind of connected, interconnected. We have the story about the Akashic records. Edgar Casey, the famous sleeping prophet from the United States, spoke about the Akashic record, that all the information in the world is stored in kind of a ethereal library that you can tap into. So what do you think that is? Exactly what you're talking about again, the basic field there, the plasma field, the vibrational field, and the extension of our DNA into that field and our long hair. You can't see it now because I'm soaking wet, because I was outside in the rain too, so I'm still wet from that. But my hair's getting long too.
And further moving on from this as well, it comes down to the point where it doesn't necessarily matter what you look like to a large degree. However, other people will judge you based upon what you look like. So I noticed that you combed your hair just before we went on the show to look a little bit more presentable. I've started tying my hair back to look a little bit more presentable. The samurai would do similarly and likewise. To make themselves look more regal and presentable. So just because you have long hair doesn't mean you have to be scruffy. They don't necessarily have to be dreadlocked and whatnot.
Right. No, long hair has been the norm for men's hair for thousands of years. I don't know when this whole fashion of cutting it short started, probably around the industrial age, which is, around the time that they wanted to destroy humanity. And so that's why short hair became a fashion.
Yeah, I think it was kind of like more the fact that they had all these young men who are coming in to work on the looms, who kept getting their heads ripped off because they got their hair stuck in the wheels or mechanics. And I recall this conversation I had with a woman, and she talked about woman's intuition, and I said, guys have got that too, but we just call it intuition. And but another thought occurred to me: women weren't required to cut their hair. And is that why in the 20th century women's intuition became a thing, whereas the men had all their intuition cut off?
Maybe, but I'll be honest with you. I've heard a lot about women's intuition, and maybe it's just me, but I don't find that they really have a lot of intuition. I really don't. I mean, it sounds good, so that, women will take a guess at things. Oh, it's my intuition. And I've seen them take really wrong guesses that if you had intuition, that's not the way you would have guessed that to go.
Yeah. Well, I just recall my mother, she told me this story. My brother, he was dressed up as Batman, and I think he was like 8 years old or something like that. And he was about to jump off the roof of the garage, and Mum was on the other side of the property, so there's no way she could have known that he was about to jump off. There's no way she could have heard him or discerned it, but she immediately, just all of a sudden, bang, and she bolted towards that, and just as he jumped off, she caught him.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, well, I believe that. Absolutely. It's not that they don't have intuition.
Well, speaking of which...
That's like an instinct. It's almost like ESP, and that's the other thing with this plasma field theory is I believe that explains a lot of what we call ESP as well. Because, the brain is an electromagnetic transmitter and receiver. We not only give off electromagnetic waves like a transmitter, we also receive electromagnetic waves, not just through the senses, but directly through the innervation in the brain itself. The nerves actually act like antennas and will pick up things. So a lot of the ESP and the instincts that people have is again related to that.
And just this morning, I did something I've never been able to do in my entire 35 years of life, Stefan. I bought my mother breakfast.
Why could you never do that?
Because I've always been a broke-ass activist with very little support from the community,
Wow. Oh, so listen, you can lend me $100, right?
No. Now,
never tell people you have money. Lesson number 1, Vinny.
I mean, I had enough to buy my mum breakfast, but the rest of it's all going to go on debts and things of that nature, because that's the incredible thing about this society is that no matter how much you're making, it's always eclipsed by the amount of debt you're already in.
Oh, you can never catch up. You can never catch up. It's designed that way. I have these guys, now I'm 63 years old, Vinny, and I know guys, and they all hope to retire. We had all these ridiculous commercials, Freedom 55, retire by the time you're 55. And nobody's retired at 55. Nobody's retired at 65. And nobody's retired at 75. And that's on purpose. That's on purpose. It's designed. You can never get out of this trap, this debt trap, this money trap, this monetary system. It's just, it's an evil trap. Yeah.
And on just the show the other day, we had Dr. Kevin Barrett saying that we needed to institute a public banking system so that when the currency is issued, it's not issued out of thin air with debt attached to it to pay the interest on to foreign bankers. And my goal for this election is to try and get these people into Parliament, right? I call it the countdown to victory. We've got 44 days left. This party has come out of nowhere, and the huge amount of support that it's been getting is equaled only by the amount of attacks they've been getting on the mainstream media. Let me illustrate with an example. Just this morning, we have a article in from stuff.co.nz saying doubts about Billy Te Kahika Jr.'s military and police background claims. Now, if the mainstream media were capable of doing this thing called going to YouTube, they would see my video right here called Proof of Military Service, Freemasons Dodgy King TK Tuesdays. And there Billy is holding up his identity card from the New Zealand Army, right? Yeah. That was 2 weeks ago we did that broadcast, and apparently that is too obscure a piece of evidence for the mainstream media to take notice of.
Yeah. No, well, listen, you're not going to have any help with the mainstream media. We had the same thing here. I don't know if you remember or you've known, what's her name? Not Lauren Southern.
Cynthia McKinney?
Huh?
Cynthia McKinney?
No. Here in Canada. Very tall, attractive brunette. She ran for mayor of Toronto.
Oh, okay.
It'll come to me. Anyways, and she's, sort of on trying to do what we're trying to do. And man, they just destroyed her. She wasn't allowed to participate in any of the debates. She wasn't allowed. They didn't cover her. The mainstream media would never, report anything that she was doing, anything that she said. She finally, during one of the debates, actually walked up onto the stage and demanded her chance to address the issues, and security came and hauled her off. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, she had as much entitlement to participate in that election as anyone else. She filed all the correct papers. She had all the number of signatures needed, and man, they destroyed her, and she has disappeared. I don't see her. She used to have a very popular YouTube channel, hundreds of thousands of subscribers. She was a really outspoken activist, and when she ran for mayor, the media and everybody, but I mean everybody, all the other candidates, the existing mayor, the present mayor, everybody, they just went after her and tore her down, and she never got in a word edgewise. So if you're thinking the media is going to cover what you're doing, forget about it. They're never going to cover what you're doing. Never, ever.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. I mean, we've had so many mentions in the mainstream media at this point, but it's been very, very negative and very, very biased to a large degree. But I'm reminded of what Elvis's producer once said. He says, "I don't care if you love him, I don't care if you hate him, as long as you've heard about him, as long as you're talking about him."
Yeah, that's no PR saying. There's no such thing as bad publicity. And that's but here's the thing. The first thing they did with this woman was they just ignored her. They ignored her, and she never got anywhere. Nobody's heard from her since. So they're just going to ignore you to death. We also had another party, the CPP, Canadian People's Party here, that ran in the last election, and they were very conservative. Of course they're labeled extreme right. I mean, these people would have been equal to what the Republicans were in like the 60s, right? It was hardly extreme right, but that's how they were labeled immediately, extreme right. And then they throw in, of course, the white nationalists, because a few of them were white. They want the country back to the way it used to be when we still had freedom and weren't being taxed and bullied by the government. That's now a nationalist. Yeah, then I'm a nationalist, okay? And if I want the government out of my wallet and I want them out of my business, then I'm a nationalist. Fine. But they went after them too, and they didn't even win one seat. And I was supporting them. We had local people here. I was, supporting the party. I was, voting for them and trying to promote them whatever way I could. But no, they just ignored the death out of them, and they didn't even win one seat. It was, so I realized then, and they put out a big campaign. This was like really going to be a new party that would, stand as a challenge to all the, the Marxist parties that we have, because every party in Canada is a Marxist party. We got the Conservatives, which are Marxist, and then we got the Liberals, which are communists, and then we got the Green Party and the NDP, which are extreme left wing. So we have nobody that represents a conservative viewpoint, and the CPP was going to be this big party that put in a lot of money, a lot of advertising. They had candidates in every riding. Never got anywhere. Not one seat in Parliament. It's tragic. I mean, I just threw my hands up in disgust at that point, because we tried, because everybody says, well, let's try and change the system. Let's, play their game. Let's put together a party, put together a platform, tell people about it, spend some money on it. And, these things are expensive to run a political campaign. Oh, my God. I mean, if you don't have a slush fund consisting of tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, you cannot break through the din. And even if you did have that slush fund, because you're a threat to the socialists that now run the entire world, they're going to make sure that your message doesn't get through no matter how much money you spend. So it's going to be tough. Vinny, the only way to go with this from a PR point of view is alt media. It really is, the YouTube videos and maybe even TikTok videos, or humor is always good. Ridicule, satire, ridicule your opponents, satirize their politics. Use humor, because if you can get people to laugh at your opponent, that's the best, because once they start laughing at your opponents have no longer have any viability, no longer have any meritocracy. No, I'm still not. That's still not the word I'm looking for.
Well, I was thinking about this because we had John Ansell, who's, in my opinion, probably one of the greatest advertising minds of a generation, on the show a number of weeks ago, and he does not support this party at the moment, but his advice was precisely that, to start calling the communists exactly what they are, communists, and to start ridiculing them to the point where everybody's laughing at them, because you can't come back from that. And I said that that's very interesting, because the one thing that narcissistic psychopaths can't handle is not being taken seriously.
Yes, that's right. Exactly right. I was going to say that. Integrity, that's the word. They would no longer have any integrity if people are laughing at them. So I would suggest things like, memes, Photoshop all your political opponents wearing Mao Zedong red jackets, with the red star hats on, because that's what they are. Put them in the Mao Zedong. Oh, what do they call that? The communist uniform that they had there in China. Superimposed their face on the body of Stalin and Lenin and Marx and all that, to show very clearly in a vision that it's not that you're running against these politicians, you're running against communists. All of these people are communists, and they really are.
All of them.
So dress them up in the Mao uniform, and have them look like Lenin. Maybe one with an ice pick in the head.
Well, we were talking about sign defacement earlier, and if you damage a sign, or if you do something in permanent marker, that's actual damage, right? But if you apply a sticker, like for example, if you've got a Chairman Mao cap sticker that's about the same size as the head of the person on that, and you apply that sticker, when the person notices that sticker is on there, they can come and simply remove it without damaging the sign. And so that's something that can technically be done, and I've got that method from Penny Bright from many years ago. Just an absolute warrior woman. She was called Her Warship, and she's not with us anymore. And I'm still me and this country are still feeling the loss to a large degree, because when she was here, there were emails coming out from her on a daily basis about all the scumbaggery that was going on in this country, just again and again and again. And then she was killed in hospital. They refused to give her diabetic medication one night, and then she slipped into a coma and died. That's hospice care in New Zealand. Their job is to help you die.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's what we're up against. Those are the people we're up against. And and look at what they have done. If you are, let's say, you're against having tranny strippers read to 6-year-olds at your library, you're not labeled a conservative, or you're labeled a Nazi, a white supremacist, a hater,
a transphobe.
A transphobe, look at the language they use against us. No, I'm not a transphobe. I know lots of gays. I've been friends with them. Do I have to always justify my opinion by prefacing it with some sentence that says, I really like these people. I've worked with them. I know them. I'm friends with them. Why do I always have to defend myself before I even say anything? Because that they've already got their slurs out there. White supremacist, transphobe. So they do that to us all the time. So let's do it back to them. Commie. You're a commie. You're a tyrant. You're a dictator. We have our dictators. You have them there. We got our Justin Trudeau, who's Fidel Castro's bastard son. Let's call them what they are. We got to think up words for them, because the minute you disagree with somebody on the left, you're automatically a white supremacist, a Nazi. I really get tired of that, because that's not what we are at all. Everybody knows that's not what we are, but it's effective because they label you like that. They automatically label you, and calling somebody a communist isn't a bad label, which is kind of sad. We have to think up a new word to call them, because communism is accepted. Nazi, everybody agrees, Nazi bad, but you call them a communist, people, an ideology that's murdered 1,000 times more people than the Nazis ever did, but it's still okay to be called and associated as being a communist. So even calling them a communist isn't a slur. So we have to think of something else.
Stalinist?
Even that, even that.
You have to know your history before you can look at these things. And we're having some comments in the chat room as well about Penny Bright. And on the channel here, ladies and gentlemen, there is a playlist called Rip Penny Bright. And you can go and you can learn from her valuable wisdom. She did over 100 shows on this broadcast while she was alive. And I would encourage people to go and watch as many of those videos as you can. Because unlike me, I'm a person who just sits there, listens, gives people a platform, and has open discussion, whereas she was the person who would get out a pencil and a ruler and find exactly what is going on and completely understand it and rip them to pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, my word for those people now, I just call them all pedophiles. Because that's basically what they are. They're all pedophiles. That's how they got in there. Perverts and pedophiles and pimps. That's what they are, We got to use a different word, because calling them a communist doesn't shame them. And they, in turn, can turn around and call us all white supremacists and Nazis and KKK and all this crap. But they have altered the language over the course of the last 100 years. They changed the meaning of words through their propaganda. And so it's really hard to fight back against them now, because you've got 44 days to victory. You're up against somebody who's been working at this for 150 years.
That's true. However, when I look at the slogans that they've got, the photos that they take of themselves, the designs that they have, they're inferior. I'm sitting here going, Are you real for this? And I think it's because artistry is something that comes off of the back of independence to a large degree. It comes off the back of freedom, and that is how you truly get across to people, is through your artistry. And these other parties don't have independence or freedom in their minds, and their artistry reflects that. It's dull, it's mediocre.
Yeah, everybody knows leftists are no good at memeing. They're no good at humor. They have no sense of humor, absolutely none, So those are your tools. Our tools is a sense of humor and our creativity. These people aren't very creative. Art, music, that's another one. We if we can get somebody to write a theme song, that lampoons the opposition. We need more songs that make fun of these people.
I'm an incredible lyricist. I can come up with lyrics for a song straight off the top of my head, and then boom, that's a song. And if you don't believe that, just go into the description, ladies and gentlemen, and look at Vinny and the Vendettas page on my website, and you can see some of our songs there. But incidentally, Billy TK, the party leader of Advanced New Zealand Public Party, is actually a very accomplished blues guitarist. So the possibility is there for an incredibly uplifting, powerful song that will not only make you laugh but it will also make you love and cry.
Yeah, no, that's a very good thing. Again, because it's emotional. People remember an emotional message. So whatever your message is, you need to kind of connect it with imagery that evokes emotion. You need to connect it with colors that evoke emotion, and with music that evokes emotion. So I would, if I were to, give advice on that, I would say you need two types of songs. One that ridicules your opponents, something that just that people listen to, they get it right away and they laugh their butts off, and then another one, an inspirational, arousing, a speech to the troops before a battle kind of song for our side. So then you've got the two songs, one that demeans and belittles the opponent, and another one that encourages the troops. So yeah, music is a very good tool for this. And again, so if I were to give you advice on how to run this campaign from a PR point of view, I would say, forget about the signs in front of the house. Yeah, you have to print some up. I know it seems to affect people that, like, most people are not going to change their mind anyways on how they vote. So adding a sign or something, that's not going to be enough to make people to change their minds. It's very hard to get people to change their mind. But if they hear a song that makes them laugh, or if they hear a song that makes them cry, that's way more powerful. That has a chance of changing their mind.
A song that makes you laugh, that makes you cry, makes you feel empowered, and makes you willing to die before you give up.
Yeah. Like the Queen song, we will rock you, It's really basic. It's a basic song. I don't even think there's any chord changes in it, but it's enough that everybody that hears it starts to go, yeah. So music is very powerful, and the Nazis in their rise to power, they had lots of songs, and they were great songs. And my mother, who was born in Holland, and because in Holland in those days, those songs traveled, from Germany, they were played on the radio throughout Europe. So a lot of the Europeans knew these songs. It didn't mean you were a member of the Nazi Party. It's just that you heard it on the radio, and they heard these songs. And to this day, well, she's dead now, but up, even into her old age, she still remembered those songs and how to sing them and the lyrics.
I recall one time I was invited to a communist, little get together, having beers in the backyard, and they were singing these old communist songs, uplifting ones like "Shoot them all, shoot them all."
Yeah, kill the Boer.
It was, a little bit of a revelation to me at that point. It's like, what am I getting involved with here? And that was interesting, because when you're younger, communism has an appeal to you because it's against injustice, it's for justice and social justice and blah, 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 blah. But it takes you a few years to realize that, they were lying about everything that they said. Right. Now I get it. And I think that's the source of people's primary confusion in the world today, is that they don't know, and they are puzzled by what these people say. They don't know that they're psychopathic liars.
Yes.
Once you know what a psychopath is, once you know that somebody is lying, the confusion just goes away. Yep. And, this person said da-da-da-da and did this is this. And your response as somebody who knows what psychopathic liars are is now, of course. I mean, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe use the word psychopath in the memes depicting your opponents, that might work too, because people are starting to wake up to the idea of psychopaths. But, I was, when I was in college, I was a leftist. I voted NDP, which is like, left of liberals, and I even campaigned for Honest Ed Broadbent. And I even worked as a community organizer And we were so successful. It was a small group in a housing project. We had a small budget, a grant, and we were so successful in forming programs and providing services to the community that the Prime Minister of Canada wanted to meet me personally. Believe it or not, Justin's dad. I got a phone call one day from Robert Kaplan, who was a MP for the area where I was working in. He said, we saw the work that you're doing, because we did everything. We had a daycare center, we had drug counseling center, we had drop-in centers, we had after-school activities, we had nightly basketball games. I had a live music venue on Thursdays. We took people out to the farm on the weekends to teach them about farming and how to drive a tractor. I mean, it was great programs, all on a shoestring budget, all created by people without a formal education, just dedicated members of the community, because we all lived there. The woman that hired us, Lenore Suddas, she purposely hired people that lived in the community. So none of these people from the university with a Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology, we've seen them. They can't do anything anyways. So we were very successful. I get a phone call, it's an election year. Pierre wants to come around. Is it okay if he comes to visit your location? I said, absolutely, wonderful, great. We'd love to have the Prime Minister give us some attention, the publicity and everything. We were all jumping for joy. 2 days later, they shut us down. And it was the Liberals that shut us down. They shut everything down. They went after us and they closed it down. And it took me months, if not years, to figure out what happened. I mean, this is what they wanted, right? Here's a grant to empower small communities, to improve the communities, especially underserved communities. We were considered a ghetto where we were working there. Now there's real ghettos. In those days, it was just, poor working Irish people, blue-collar Irish and Scots. But now we got real ghettos. And we were extremely successful, and they closed us down. I mean, they just locked the doors on us. No notice, no explanation, nothing, And guess why? You see, liberals don't really want to make a better world. They really don't.
They just want to destroy the existing one and recreate it in their own scumbaggery image. Is that about right?
That's exactly right, Vinny. They really don't, and they certainly don't want, because I can tell you all these organizations, I know them, that were, we had Ontario Housing and Parks and Recreation and all the other, their coffee budget for a month was more than we lived on for a year. And these people did nothing for anyone ever. They never did anything. So now to have a bunch of, let's face it, we were ghetto rats. Come in with a shoestring budget and put on more programs and provide more services than they have done in their entire career. Well, hey, it makes them look bad. So they shut it down. And that's the liberals, that's the communists. They always talk about, lift up the people and the poor working class and all that. That they don't want that at all. And that's when I stopped being a liberal. That's when I stopped being a communist, because I was, really in the communist camp. I admired mainland China at those days, I thought Mao Zedong was doing a good thing there. I didn't know anything better. They didn't teach us anything about communism other than how wonderful it was, right, in college. And then I saw firsthand, this is how these liberals really are. They're mean, backstabbing sons of guns that they don't want to do anything good. All of it is a lie, just to keep their job and to get a bigger budget so they can spend more money on, stuff that they can pilfer, and the corruption and the kickbacks and everything is just out of control. So communists, they just lie their asses off all the time. They don't want to do anything positive for society. Absolutely not. And I saw it firsthand. And that's when I turned, and that's when I started to become more conservative.
And people would say, but how can those people sleep at night? And I'll tell you why. When you don't have a conscience to keep you up, you can sleep at night no matter what you have done. Okay? Oh, I just signed legislation that's going to wind up getting 50 children killed per year. just like...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that's exactly why. They are psychopaths. People need to understand, go to my video, Defense Against the Psychopaths. It's already like, I don't know, 12 years old since I put that out. It's very simple, 38-minute documentary, explains very clearly, there's no heavy duty psychology or anything like that. It just explains very clearly what these people are and how they get into the positions of power that they do. And once they're in there, these are evil, evil people. And that's why, now in government, what we see there in Britain and in the United States with the Epstein, and here in Canada, it's only a matter of time before we find out that Justine, I call him Justine, because the guy's I can't even stand to say his name. That's how much I despise this guy. But they're all really sick, disgusting people. And they lie, and they know how to put on a happy face, a front for people, but deep down inside, they just want to see you suffer. I always wondered why do these billionaires like Soros? I mean, he's got more money than he could spend in 100 lifetimes, right? What could he possibly buy that he doesn't already have? And why is he spending so much money to make this world worse? Because he's a psychopath. And psychopaths aren't happy being rich. Psychopaths are happy being rich and making sure you're poor. That's what makes them happy.
It's a pathological need for money, power, and sex. And the power thing is because they had no power as a child. They had no ownership over themselves because their parents were psychopaths predominantly. And that's why they try to absolutely control everybody, and that's why they don't have a conscience, because it stops them from controlling others. And that's how you get to the top of the Communist Party. In China, Hu Jintao reportedly kept his head down his entire career. Didn't come up with any original ideas.
No.
Didn't do anything. And then everybody else was attacking each other, taking each other out, and then he wound up on top. Because he'd said nothing, done nothing, and became, thus, didn't make anybody else look bad. All right? And that's the how you get to the top of communism, is by being remarkably unexceptional.
Yeah.
And this party here, on the other hand, Advanced New Zealand, it is the exact opposite mentality. I mean, I just saw a speech in Parliament that was posted on our Facebook page today by a co-leader of Advanced New Zealand Public Party, Jamie Lee Ross, who is the only member of Parliament currently sitting who is actually criticising the COVID-19 response bill, which is basically going to turn the Bill of Rights into toilet paper that they wipe themselves with. The only one. And there are people out there saying, hey, he's a communist, look, he's getting bribed by communists. Well, in actual fact, he's the only member of Parliament who has come out swinging against the communists and saying that they are bribing both parties. And this party has grown out of absolutely nothing, just from the word of mouth, just from the community support, and that the independent, freedom-loving people in this country who still have talent, who still have a conscience, are coming out of the woodwork like you would not believe. It is impossible for me to answer every email and every message and things of that nature, and I am getting 1/1000th of a fraction of the support that Billy is getting. His phone is ringing off the hook. He's got thousands of friend requests he can't reply to. That is what happens when you give people hope.
Yeah, that's that's a good point. Listen, I've lived in China. I've been a China watcher. I wrote a couple of books on China. I've written articles on China, and let me tell you about China. China is controlled by New York bankers. That's where they get their marching orders. Everything that's going on now is because of the old school communists that fled Russia back in the turn of the century, and their grandchildren grew up in America working for the banks. That's who controls China. So all this program, you got to understand, it's the same as the Stalinists, as the Leninists, the Marxists. And they are telling Xi, they're giving him his instructions on what to do. Because the Chinese people, I know the Chinese people, they have never been aggressive at all in the 4,000 years of history. They fought amongst each other. Yeah, they murdered each other by the millions. But they never tried to go outside the boundaries of their own country. And now China is fighting with everybody. That never happened before. But the reason it's happening now is because they're being controlled by New York bankers and London bankers and Berlin bankers. It's all the same cabal. You know what I'm talking about, Vinny. And they run China. So when you see all this stuff about what's going on there, don't think that this is the Chinese people. It's not the Chinese people. It's the Germans, the British, and the Americans in the banking cartels. They're the ones that are running it. So be very careful, because just like they did in the First World War, I really think they're pushing them into a world war. They pushed Russia into that First World War. And then, they, of course, they murdered the Tsar and his family. I see identical parallels between what happened in Russia at the turn of the century and what's going on with China right now. Who's paying for all their tanks and everything? You think that money's coming from New York and Berlin and London? All these cities and all the money they're spending on the architecture in China. You see that? Where do you think they got that money from? They were taught how to print the same phony money. They're under the same powers. It's the same plan. They're going to push them into war. And the reason I'm saying is because New Zealand and Australia is in a direct line of fire.
Thank you very much for your time today, Stefan.
You're welcome, Vinny. I'm sorry I couldn't have been of more help. I haven't been too prepared. And I just came off another 3-hour interview, and then it rained and I'm hot.
Well, my camera just ran out of battery. I had to reset it just now, so perfect time for us to get off the thing. So again, Stefan, thank you very much for your time, for your expertise, and also for your PR advice here. And full disclosure, ladies and gentlemen, yes, I am being paid by the party a very, very small amount each month, $1,000. All right, so that's $1,000 for an entire month's work, ladies and gentlemen. If you think I'm willing to sell my integrity for that, you'd be wrong. I'm just doing it because it is what I would be doing anyway, and the only reason I'm charging the party for it is to make them value my time, because if you don't value your time, ladies and gentlemen, nobody else will. And there have been no lies, no miscommunications and things of that nature on this broadcast in the last 12 years, and there will not be during this election campaign either. And if you think I'm biased towards the party, have a look back in the archives over the last couple of weeks, where we brought on the co-leader of the New Conservative Party, Elliot Ikeley, where we brought on the joint leader of the Legalised Cannabis Party, Marky Herbert, and soon enough we will actually be bringing on the co-leader of the Outdoors Party as well, to talk about online bullying and the bullying culture, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you can stay tuned to that. This is how we build a movement, ladies and gentlemen, not with hate, not with fear, but with love. Stefan, thank you very much for your time and your expertise.
Oh, you're very welcome, Vinny. And if you ever have any questions for me, we can talk offline, I'm always available to help people in a just cause. And
just before we go, I want to show you my my little baby here. Let's see if I can get that puppy running. Here we are. There she is.
Wow. Look at her.
She's got a great smile, eh?
Yeah.
That's my baby.
That smile says, "I'm so glad I don't look like my daddy."
That's exactly what Billy said yesterday on the show. You can't make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. Great minds think alike, and yeah.
She's beautiful. Congratulations, Vinny. Congratulations. She's absolutely gorgeous.
Thanks, brother. And of course, I can't take full credit. I mean, I was present, but
what? You didn't give birth to her?
No.
Now I'm confused.
Yeah. Well, in fact, it was she was born. Oh, you might actually find this interesting. She was born at 9:11 p.m. Okay, but that's not all. She was born dead by a cesarean section, and then she was resuscitated and brought back to life, and it was on Easter Sunday. Right? In the fourth month of the 20th year, and I'm a cannabis activist, so 420 is the international code for cannabis. And then they kept her in a little incubator at 33.3 degrees. The Holy Trinity. 9/11 was the birth of Jesus, apparently, according to the old star charts. 420 is the code for the plant that really started civilization in the first place. Just so much powerful symbolism and numerology just with her birth alone. And I think that she's going to be an incredibly powerful figure when she grows up.
Yeah. It's like the opposite of the Antichrist stuff, you know. I think you might have given birth to the Messiah.
One can only hope. All right, thank you, Stefan, and you have yourself a wonderful day.
You too, Vinny. Thanks very much. Take care, everybody.
Cheers, brother.
Bye-bye.
Stefan Versteppen, ladies and gentlemen, martial arts master, and his website is chinastrategies.com. And again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I have to remind myself that, Vinny, you're a very, very ungrateful person. Very ungrateful at all times. And ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in my life this morning, my mother came round to hang out a little bit. She wanted to get some time with the baby, but unfortunately the wife and baby were asleep in the bedroom, so I took her out to breakfast. This was the very first time in the 35 years that I've been on this planet that I was able to buy my mother a meal. And that is all because of your support, ladies and gentlemen, that you have shown me during these last couple of months that I've been helping out the Advanced New Zealand Public Party. And I am deeply, deeply grateful for you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. And also thank you to the mods, over here, Jimmy James, on the fence with Muzza, in the backup channel, which is the NZPP channel. We've got W924. Guys, thank you so much for volunteering all your time. Marley Pumpkin, Benny Mac, Amos777, Richard Bonner. Guys, thank you so much for all of your help, because it's just so hard to keep out the riffraff and stuff like that by myself while I'm on the live broadcast. And I am very, very grateful, because I'm not excuse me, I'm getting the words are choking me. I'm not a thankful person in general, and I have this massive sense of entitlement and a gargantuan ego, and I find it difficult to take compliments. And the love and the support that you guys have all shown me, and the voluntary actions you have taken to share these shows out, to give them likes, to leave your comments and things of that nature, it blows me away. It really does. And I'm thankful. I really am. So go into the description, ladies and gentlemen, if you do want to donate to the show. There are KiwiBank numbers. There is the PayPal email, guerrillamedia77@gmail.com. That's guerrillamedia77@gmail.com if you wish to make one-off donations. On the homepage of the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, there are PayPal buttons that have little drop-down things. So if you want to start up an automatic payment through the PayPal or through KiWiBank or through Patreon, I would very, very much appreciate that, ladies and gentlemen. My goal is to pay off my student debt now. We have about $1,000 left to go, ladies and gentlemen, before I can pay off my student debt, and then we will try and focus on getting paying off my wife's student debt next. And that's basically what all this money is going through, ladies and gentlemen. I bought breakfast for my mum, and I want to pay off my student debt. That is... I honestly wish that I was one of those people who knew how to spend their money on stuff, but I'm like, I have everything I need. I don't need anything else. I just want to get out of debt. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I want to get out of debt. I want to have a home for my wife and baby so that they're secure, so that they're safe. I need to pay the bills. And you guys, for the last 12 years, you guys, the listeners, the supporters of this show, have paid for every single thing that we have needed, from the equipment to our food to our rent, power and internet, ladies and gentlemen. This is all your fault, really. I mean... With that being said, thank you very much for everybody who's been supporting the show, and go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. That's Vinny with a Y, because it's the most important question, and Eastwood, like, go ahead, make my news. And go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, please donate today. Thank you for listening to the Vinny Eastwood Show. I am not a credible journalist. I'm an incredible journalist.